Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Sean. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Welcome to Inside the Huddle.
Let's get the party started.
I know we have a couple of guests today.
Yes, we do.
It should be exciting.
Yeah. Is
We
Ramon?
have
Here he is.
our fearless leaders joined us. Always love when Liz checks in.
Me
We
too.
get a lot of good advice.
Yes.
And we've got a guest speaker today on this amazing topic.
Yes, we do. Ramon, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Glad you could join us.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't mind my 2-year-old yelling in the background if you end up hearing him.
Yeah, no
That's
worries.
fantastic. You gotta love it. So, what's our topic for today, Steve?
Well, I think it's about, we want to talk about the CRM, but more importantly, we really want to talk about why CRM, right? Like why should it matter? Liz and I and you, I think we had a triangulation of the minds here, and we all agree that I don't think any of us have met a high-performing individual in any form of sales that didn't have a good contact relations management system, right? And so I think it's hopefully what we'll learn today, and Ramon can share with us, is there's a discriminating difference between customer service and the customer experience. And if you want to have a customer experience that people remember, you have to manage your network. You have to manage them. Let's talk about that, and I hope that we can lay the foundation and the understanding that for every successful entrepreneur, a cornerstone of a successful business is a management system to help them build and maintain relationships with their treasures, which is their network, the people in their network. They have to maintain that relationship, and this is how you do it.
I agree. I come at it, excuse me, I come at it almost from to me, it's a common sense thing. It takes so much more effort and so much more money to bring in new business. And in the beginning, it's all new business, and we always want to be bringing people in, but you reach a point where the idea is to have a strong enough database that the majority of your business comes from that, simply by you being a resource, staying in touch with them, reminding them what you do. The cost of that is a tenth of the cost. I think they say it takes 9 times more money to get a new client versus get a referral. So it's almost 10% of the cost of getting new business. So just out of a sense of, I want to generate business without working too hard, we got to work our CRM and let it do the heavy lifting for us.
Well, let me ask a question before we segue into Ramon here real quick. How many of you on the call, you can put in the chat, have written a transaction or have put a deal together based on your first contact with a client? Like you've met them for the first time and boom, you've either got the listing or you put them in escrow. How many have done that? Or what do you think the percentages are of that happening in this business? Pretty small?
Pretty small.
So Floyd Wickman, okay, I'm going to age myself, right? He said the key to success in sales is follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. And he said, repeat after me, follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. Well, this is what this does, right? This is the tool for follow up. So just wanted to put that out there, that if all you're doing is managing your network between your ears, that is not good enough. I mean, it simply isn't. Not if you want to maximize your potential.
Well, especially when there are tools out there. And you and I have been in this business long enough to have used a lot of different, all the way back to the shoebox CRM. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Or the 3-ring binder. But I've never seen a CRM like Compass has.
No.
So now it's an IQ test. I mean, here's this amazing tool that does the most important thing you're going to do in your business. Are you fully utilizing it? And all the other tools that we have at Compass basically spring forward out of the CRM. So I would argue it's the single most important tool we have. When I'm coaching agents, we don't go anywhere past that. Until your CRM is absolutely running and has action plans executing, there's nothing else to talk about, because we're missing the low-hanging fruit. We're missing the best business. Not only the most business, but this is the business we want to do because it's people we know. That has to be the highest priority.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to throw out a couple of statistics that by way of introducing Ramon. We shoot for, and I don't know, you may differ with this, Steve, but when I'm talking to agents, a 6 to 8 per conversion would be the norm from our CRM, meaning if you have 100 people in your CRM, you would expect 6 to 8 deals to come directly from them or be referred by somebody in there.
That's right.
10% is doing well. You're actually really utilizing that CRM fully if you're hitting 10%. And that's always been my goal with myself and anyone I talk to. Until I talked to Ramon. I don't know, Ramon, maybe it was a month ago, 6 weeks ago. He's in the office and we're chatting and we're talking about the business he's doing this year. And I'm not going to go into the stats, but it's in the millions in GCI. And the majority of it comes from his CRM. And I asked him, how many people are in your database? I mean, you must have, a lot of people to be doing that much business. And I think you said you had about 250 people. So I did the quick math in my head and said, you're operating at about a 15% conversion. He said, yeah, that's about where I am. How the hell are you at a 15% conversion when 10 is really good? You must be sending some phenomenal stuff. Well, I send the Compass newsletter. Okay, we got to get you in a class. We got to get you on Inside the Huddle because that's a phenomenal conversion and a tremendous amount of business just utilizing the Compass tools. So that's my introduction of Ramon and why I wanted to hear from him myself and introduce him to all of you guys who don't know him. Welcome, Ramon.
I appreciate that, Sean. Yeah, I think that was about 3 to 4 weeks ago. I mean, I guess one of the main things we talked about was not just the CRM, but not complicating the business, right? Making it as easy as possible. Because I feel like a lot of agents, when it comes to things they send their clients, they're worried about the littlest things. Does this sentence sound right? Is this the right picture? Things like that. I think those are things that just don't really people just don't care, especially within your sphere or past clients. I actually just went over this with my team, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. I can't even remember the meeting, but it wasn't that long ago. I mean, one of the big things I use the CRM for is the monthly emails. Compass puts together a lot of things that I see agents take hours, sometimes days on to put a newsletter together about what's going on in San Diego. For me, it's either the newsletter or I look at the next month and I look at what holidays coming, 4th of July, Mother's Day, Father's Day, something like that. And I get a pretty good open rate, like 35 to 40%. But the main reason I'm sending the emails, and I do this monthly, every month my clients get an email, is not really for the open rate, but more for them to just see my name, even if they just delete it. It's like you getting a card in the mail, but you're not a motivated seller. You see it, you throw it away. You don't think twice about it. But if you consistently see that name, and you're looking to sell, well, shoot, I might wait till the next month to get that card, or who was that agent sending me that information? So that's how I treat the monthly emails. I don't get too focused on, did they open my email or not? Am I sending the right content? Is the time of the day the best time of the day? Is the day of the week the best day of the week? So I've done that since I got into the business. So almost 10 years at this point. Every month they get an email. The other big thing I do is every morning I look at Compass's likely to sell, because now that I have 10 years worth of past clients, that information is good, just because I've actually seen it where some of these clients have had activity on like other websites like Zillow, Redfin, and I've reached out to them sooner than I typically do, and I've actually gotten listings from the likely to sell just because I've been looking over that every day. I've gotten 3 listings this year from it.
That's awesome.
So it's good information that we should be using. And don't get me wrong, Compass has so much stuff, but I just use the stuff that works for me. and I think that's the most important thing before you jump into especially all the cool stuff Compass has, is first figure out what works for you. So I'm just a pretty minimalist with how I do the business, again, just to not complicate it for myself, because it's very easy to do. But I think the biggest thing I do, especially with the CRM, plus I use it in a spreadsheet, a separate old school spreadsheet, is I'm calling all my past clients every quarter. Again, been doing that for 10 years. Used to take me 15 minutes to call my past clients because I only had a few past clients. Now it takes me a month and a half to call my past clients. Usually it's 8 to 10 a day, sometimes 10 to 12. If I get really busy for a couple days, I'll have to call 15 to 20 in a day.
Let me interrupt for a second and ask you a question about that. And I know Steve and I, this is going to be a two-part, by the way, guys. Next Monday, we're going to get into more nuts and bolts of the CRM. But the cadence, you send a monthly email and a quarterly call. Is that the extent? Is it the consistency that makes all the difference? What's the cadence of contact?
Yeah, the consistency of it, every month, every quarter. I have clients that they'll literally have me in a calendar and see what it looks like 3 months from now, because they know in 3 months I'll be giving them a call. Sometimes I'll get text messages being like, hey, I haven't gotten my quarterly call, check in. So they're checking in with me before I can check in with them, just because the list has gotten so long. So sometimes, depending on where I'm at in that list, it's taking me a little bit longer to get a hold of or to get to them. But they know around that 3 months, they're getting that phone call. So they're almost like, you're like training them.
Right. Tell us about the phone call. Are you pitching them on a sale, or are you just checking in? Do you have, what are you offering them?
I'm just checking in. I never pitch them on a sale. I look at it as just being a good human being, calling people you like, having a conversation, because when you can have a conversation and build a friendship, they're going to be your biggest cheerleaders. So I never ask them for business, even though there's a lot of coaches, and I'm a big Mike Ferry coach. Not Mike Ferry coach, but I follow all Mike Ferry stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big time cold caller, and he is very big on asking for the business if you're making the phone call. It's one of a handful of things where I'm like total opposite of what he coaches. It is strictly just seeing how the dog's doing, the kids are doing, the house is doing, whatever our last conversation was. I just pick up where that ended, which is where I use the CRM, because, just tracking the notes is a big deal for me. For some people, I got 10 years worth of notes. So, I can go back and just look at stuff and, grandkids being born, what their kids' name. I'm terrible with names. So sometimes I got to have my wife, when she's with me, ask them what, introduce herself and meet the kids, just so I can write it down. So I got to make sure all this stuff written down so that I can remember. But, people just want to have conversations. And I can't tell you how many people I've met, and we're going over how we keep in touch with our past clients. And I ask them, when was the last time you called everybody? Oh, it's been years. I just send them cards in the mail. That's it, or an email. And I'm pretty blown away by that, just because these people like you. So why aren't you calling them and just having a normal conversation?
And something you just said, I think, really changes. I hope for some of you it changed your thinking. A lot of the time we don't make calls because I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to pitch them. I'm not sure what to say. And you're giving them the complete freedom of, I don't have anything to say. I'm just being a good human being. How are you doing? What's going on in your life? There's no script for that. There's nothing needed for that.
Yeah. And I've realized every quarter when I call them, I'm calling I'm spending a whole month calling all my past clients every month, is that what I've noticed is there's something big that typically happens in someone's life in my database. And now it's not just someone, it's usually 5 or 6 people. Animals passing away, kids graduating from college, parents. There's just so much stuff going on. So every quarter, something's big happening, and sometimes it's like, hey, we just got a job, we need to move. You were actually just on our mind. So it's me being in front of them before they can get to me, because if you're waiting for them to get to you, there's so many agents that somebody's going to refer them something.
Right. It's not their job to keep you successful.
Yeah.
And remember, it's your job. We have a question in the comments from Wayne, one I'm hearing more and more. He said that I call, but many are not answering their phones. Is there a time that you do the calls that's better?
No. So, and that's a great question. It is, I probably get 90% of the people that don't pick up their phone when I call. So majority of my past clients don't pick up, but I leave messages. Hey, just checking in. It's been a while since I spoke to you. Give me a call back. Love to catch up with you. Majority of the times, they don't ever call me back, but they got a voicemail. It's the same way that I look at the emails. They got a call from me. They saw the voicemail, whether they heard it or not. I had one client 7 years after we did the transaction, didn't pick up my call once, didn't respond to emails, text messages, nothing. And then all of a sudden they called me and said, hey, I've been getting, your emails, your voicemails. I actually have 2 of my houses I need to sell. My cousin needs to sell, and then their daughter's looking to buy. And then all of a sudden you go from not talking to this person from 7 years and then having, $3 to $4 million in volume in transactions just overnight. So that's what the phone calls are for. To be honest with you, if I talk to every single one of my clients, when I called every quarter, it would take me longer than a month to talk to everybody. I mean, it would take way too much time. So it's just another touch.
Can I say something? I think that, if you have an effective CRM and you have great notes, think about, like, I'm going to give you an example of a call that I got from what I think is one of the best salespeople I've ever known right here in San Diego. It was the person that sold me a Land Rover several years back. And we had the wildfires come through Aviara. They actually were raging, I can't remember, was it the witch fire or whatever, but they came through Aviara. And I got a voice message from this person that said, Steve, I noticed that your zip code is affected by the wildfires. I'm just checking in on you to make sure you and your family are okay. That was a voicemail that I got during all this chaos. When I heard it, it damn near brought me to tears. I called him back, and I actually called his general sales manager to tell him how much that meant to me, that he had someone who cared enough. Now, the only way, by the way, this guy's name is Will Foster. So if any of you have ever bought a Land Rover, maybe you know him. But this guy had a CRM, clearly. He had a CRM that knew where I lived. He went and saw what areas were affected, pulled that zip code, and probably called every client he had and checked in on them and left that kind of a message. Sean and I were talking. So imagine that. Like, if you got that call, not just, hey, I'm just checking in, see how things are going. You have a purpose to the call. So Sean and I noticed, I'm a dog person, if you haven't, and those of you that may or may not know that. Dogs are people too in my life. I saw Jeffrey Douglas, our wonderful sales manager downtown, posted on Father's Day. We were talking about content and why a CRM can be so important. He takes a picture of this beautiful little dog. I think it's an Akita, right? I can't remember the name of the brand. It's a miniature like Akita thing from Japan. And he takes a picture of his dog and he says, not even a Father's Day card. Now, what if you had a CRM of all of your clients that were single or not, had their dogs, you knew their dog's name, and on Father's Day or Mother's Day, you sent a Happy Father's Day card to that client from the dog. I promise you, you will send very few things to your clients that will move them as emotionally as that card. And the only way you're ever going to be able to do that is by way of a CRM. There's no other way for you to be able to have that information And if you're looking at social media, if you have a network and you're looking at social media and you're just checking the boxes off into your CRM, like you can have 2 windows open on a Mac. And I can look at Sean Persona, I can follow what's going on in his life. And I can follow up 3 months later. How'd that kitchen cabinet thing go, Sean? Like wink, like rib him a little bit. Trust me, we'll have conversation around those things, as opposed to being, again, intellectually lazy and just throwing out a call for no reason, right?
I don't know if you're aware that you just did it, but Steve just demonstrated exactly what we're talking about. Did you guys catch that? Anybody write down the name of the Range Rover salesperson that he just referred to 40 or 50 people? That's the whole point of this. That guy made a call. It touched Steve. Here he is in front of all of you giving a referral out.
Yeah.
It happens that easily. I love it. Ramon, and this keeps going back to you. What do you say? What do you do? What are you pitching? I'm just being a good human being. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it's what people, I don't think people get enough of those phone calls, a check-in phone call. People get really busy with their lives. So when somebody checks in with them consistently, they love it. They appreciate it. Again, they have me on their calendar. Not only are they on my calendar, they're checking in with me because they haven't gotten a phone call because it's been 3 months, but it's been 3 months, 1 week, just because my list is a little bit longer these days. So,
and a 90% don't answer.
Yeah, I mean, checking in is just the biggest thing. Majority of them don't answer. Who cares? It's like when, again, I'm a big cold caller, so probably 98% of people don't pick up their phones when I call, but it doesn't matter. And then, that 1% is bad numbers. And then that other 1% is, some people I can get a hold of. It's numbers game. It's not a big deal. It's just checking in. These people are okay with these voicemails. Don't worry that you don't have a conversation with somebody. So that's my monthly is the emails, my quarterly is the calls. And you got to realize some people that never pick up my phone calls, some of them will respond to my emails. That's very, not a ton, but some of them that don't ever respond to my emails pick up my phone calls. So there's my monthly, my quarterly, and then my yearly. In December, I always send my holiday card. I'm really taking advantage of having a young son now, to throw him in a holiday card, and people want to see him more than they want to see my face, me and my wife's face. So, whether it's your kids, your dogs, people just want to see the progression of your life too, because we're always checking in on them. So what I've noticed is people like to check in with me. They'll tag me on Facebook, Instagram when they get the card. They'll shoot me a text message directly, like, thank you. Oh my God. Your wife, there was one where my wife was pregnant. And then, when he was really tiny, and then, he was about 1.5 when the next card came. And, this year he's going to be almost 2.5 by the time the holiday cards come. So people are loving to see that progression. And right before the holidays, before they see everybody, and I just started those cards 4 years ago. And ever since I started that holiday card, I really saw even more referrals come from it. I'm not saying that's the thing that's giving me all these referrals, but it's helping. It has to be. On top of how crazy the market has been too. But, it's, again, another touch. You're
creating a relationship. That's the whole point. I mean, people care about these things because you've actually generated a relationship with them.
Yeah. And I don't know how some of them get their address. They'll send my son Christmas gifts without me even asking.
That's fantastic. I want to keep up with when questions come in. John asked, he said, thank you for all the tips, which absolutely speaking for everybody. What is your contact like when you're calling those likely to sells that you mentioned?
Just kind of like my quarterly check-ins, how you doing? How's life? What's going on? Sometimes those check-ins, depending on, just because the likely to sell, some of them I know exactly what's going on with their lives. So, I'll just skip that specific client on the likely to sell. But if it's somebody I haven't been able to get a hold of, I'll try reaching out to them a little bit more aggressively. Whether it's the phone call, a text message, an email. Sometimes I'll call them a couple times in a day, a couple times in a week. But I try not to bug them too much. Because like anything else, it's a system that's generating information. Some of it's right, some of it's wrong. It's just giving you information. You got to be able to know what's going on with your client's life, so you know where exactly that information's at. Know how correct it is.
One thing about likely to sell too, Sean and Ramon, and I think Liz can verify this too. What we've learned is that when you're getting flagged, or when a client is flagged, regardless of whether I just sold in that house just a year or so ago, they couldn't possibly be right, or they're doing something where the algorithms are being picked up by the bots and the things that we're using in the tech space, where they're playing around with real estate. So they're playing around either for themselves or for someone else or for their children, whatever. But trust me, that just doesn't show up just randomly. There's something going on in their world where they are playing with the game of real estate. If nothing else, it tells you that they're just generally interested in it, and someone that should be on, to Ramon's point, probably a monthly mailer or some mailer of any sort, or contact check-in. Liz?
Yeah, I was going to say the other thing to remember about them is that what we're seeing is that on average they're selling or listing within 6 months. So it's not like jump on them because you're going to miss them this week, but it is like intensify, as Ramon said, intensify your attempts to really connect with them, because you've got a little bit of a window here, but you've got to be front and center.
Amen.
And I think that's where the quarterly calls really help stay on top of them, because you're being on top of them without even realizing it.
That's right.
So you're catching them typically at a good time. I'm going to tell you, in 10 years, I've only ever had 3 clients not ever come back to me.
Wow.
So, I mean, and those 3 clients were the 3 clients that, they're basically like a Redfin type person. I was the listing agent. They used me because, I had the listing and wanted the inside track type of deal. So I kind of had a feeling, when they went somewhere else, I wasn't surprised. But that's not people I wanted in my database anyway. I just kept them in there just because what's an easy phone call, a few minute phone call,
Right.
and I've had other people that have done the same thing. When it comes to, I felt like they basically used me as their agent because they had the inside track. However, now they're like my highest referral people in my database. So it's really hit or miss.
Because you do an easy phone call.
Yeah.
There's 2 questions that came in. I'm going to throw them both at you. Wendy asked if you ever make appointments, coffee, lunch, that kind of thing, sometimes with our A+ people. And John asked if you do anything different with your out-of-town past clients.
I don't really do very many lunches with clients. I'll do like typically once a month, a dinner with one of my clients, my A+ clients. But I guess now having, a family, I guess my son and my wife, I'm already at work 10 to 12 hours a day. So I don't really have much time during the day. That's not how my business is personally built. It's a good way. I've seen people be really, really successful from just meeting people at lunches and, past clients and having conversations. I think as the database grows and your A+ client grows, you're not going to have very much time to go to lunch all day, every day, or it's going to be very expensive. Because anytime I go to lunch, I'm always offering to pay to go to lunch with clients. Not that I don't do it, but I just don't have a lot of time to do it. So I figured out with my database how to make the best use of my time doing other activities. So
How about out-of-town clients?
I treat them the same. Actually, and I think I have told this to you, Sean. my out of town clients actually refer me. When it comes to the numbers, I get the most amount of my referrals from my out of town clients than I do from my in town clients.
That's amazing. Everybody heard that? Out of town clients provide more referrals than your in town clients.
Yeah, I mean, I started tracking that 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. And I don't know what it is, because they're keeping in contact. They have family members here still. It's not like they, get up and leave their life and they stop talking to people in San Diego. Whether they go to Florida, the Midwest, the popular states like Texas, Idaho, these people are still in contact with their friends, family members, relationships with their kids' parents, the kids' friends' parents. So yeah, they'll be like, hey, we're thinking about leaving the state. Who did you use? So
right. This is we're at time. I think Steve and I will stay as we always do. Ramon, if you can hang out for a few minutes, but we want to be respectful of anyone who needs to move on. Liz has raised her hand. I love when we do Inside the Huddle and Liz feels she has to raise her hand.
I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to say for the people on the call, when you're talking about consistent activity, Ramon said it takes him a month to a month and a half to get through his database. But if you are just getting started with this and you're just trying to be consistent on a daily basis, this is the formula. Take your database, divide it by 60, because there are 60 work days in a quarter if you're only counting Monday through Friday. And that's when you're doing your prospecting activity. Database divided by 60 equals the number of calls you need to make per day to get through your database in a quarter. I'm a numbers guy. Just be on it consistently. For some of you, that's going to be 2 calls a day. Randall's smiling because I've told him this, and he's been consistent with his calls and his cards, and he knows when he's off, right? Because consistently, start with that, because it's only a couple of calls a day. You form the habit, and then when you get to Ramon's level, if you've got to make 8 calls a day, no sweat.
It's a great way to spend your day.
Yeah.
If people say, what do you do for a living? Well, I chat with friends mostly. Really? They pay you for that? Yeah, a couple $1 million a year. That's a damn good job. Liz, fantastic. That's a good primer for next week, by the way. Next week, Steve and I are going to bring you guys a lot of the nuts and bolts, systems, actual steps within the CRM, so that this overview of what Ramon's doing, this phenomenal success he has, will give you the pieces and the steps and the action plan so that you can mimic that. And then the key, and I just got this from you, Steve, I got it from you, Ramon, Liz, you brought it up again. We tend to look for reasons not to call. Oh, that person's only been there for 1 year. They're not going to sell. Oh, they're out of town. They're not going to have a real estate deal for me. Don't look for reasons not to call people. Our whole job is just to be in touch. Wouldn't you say, Ramon, that's your primary job, is that you stay in touch with people?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the funny thing about that is last year I went on an appointment from an expired listing, didn't get the listing, but the guy really liked me, and it was strictly commission based. The agent took it at 3.5%. I just couldn't do that. He moves to Vegas. In Vegas one day, decides to put that home back on the market, calls me to help him buy the house, because he ended up not having a good, it wasn't a good relationship with the last agent. Helped him buy a house. 3 months later, he calls me and says, I made a mistake. I want to go back to Vegas. So he put his home on the market to sell it in Vegas. And, I ended up putting his daughter's house on the market and just closed that so that she could go to Vegas with him. So, I mean, I've never met somebody who's turned around so much. And now I'm hearing that he's possibly thinking about putting that home on the market in Vegas to come back to San Diego.
Yeah.
You just don't know what people are up to. I mean, obviously that's a one-off, but I mean, it's just keeping in contact. And Sean, I wanted to tell everybody this, because I have a process every time I close a deal with somebody. I have a spreadsheet, which I can't show you now, but it's just a simple, basic spreadsheet I keep everybody on. But when I close them, I put them on the spreadsheet. I put them in the Compass CRM. I use minted.com for my cards. So I automatically put them into minted.com. So when I do my yearly cards, it's really easy for me to just, create the card, order it, send it out without having to go in there, put my whole database in there. So I'm on top of it. Obviously I think Shutterfly is another one. There's a lot of them, but I use minted.com. The other thing that I've seen a lot of success with is I add them to social media every time I close a deal with them. So I try to find them on Instagram, try to find them on Facebook, and I add them. Right. They are always tagging me and stuff, posting stuff about me, connecting me with people. Like social media, I'm not very big on social media, where a lot of agents are do a lot of videos and things like that. I don't personally do that. It's just not me. But what I've learned is the things I do post, whether it's family or some of the listings we have, clients are commenting on them like crazy, or sharing them on their timelines. And the other thing is obviously getting a review from your clients. Those are the main things that I do every single time I close a deal. It hasn't changed. Outside of, adding them to social media, which I've been doing that for a couple years now. For the agents that want to keep their personal and their business separate, you're doing it wrong. I was that agent. But don't be a realtor if you don't want people to follow you, and you want to keep business and life separate, because as soon as you sign up to be a realtor, you become a public figure, whether you like it or not, because all they got to do is Google your name and you're going to pop up everywhere. They can get all your information. They can even get your social media. So whether you like it or not, they can find you on social media. I mean, I've had people hire me strictly based on like, hey, I saw your social media. You actually seem like a normal person. So that's basically what I wanted to say, because I think having a closing process with each client is really important, just as much as consistently keep in touch with them, monthly, quarterly, yearly. Yeah.
There are four things that I've learned today, Sean, that I think you and I know, but they've become self-evident again. The importance of a CRM is process. If you want to be successful at anything, you have to be able to predict it and duplicate it, right? And process, CRM allows you to do that. 2, it helps you understand the lifetime value of a client. So if they're sending you repeat referral business, you understand that A-lister or what the VIP section of your database is and how you might want to interact with them in a more meaningful or more touch point way, direct contact. 3, automation. Automation is the key here. No one person can do everything, but if you have a platform in which you can automate things so that it just happens. And then 4, what we're hearing is when you have an effective CRM, it allows you to improve your business. It allows you to take a look at what's working, what's not, what context, what content you're using to make those contexts and make improvements. So I think those are the 4 takeaways I've got from listening to Ramon speak today. And it's awesome.
I think those are phenomenal 4 takeaways. I know we're over, so I want to take this moment to thank you, Ramon, for taking the time this morning to be on the call and share with us. And want to thank all of you guys for being on the call this week. This is a really hot topic. We discussed before how important it was, and join us next week because we are going to, like I said, get into the nuts and bolts of putting this into action.